It's Monday, and a new week in crypto is getting underway. Here with all the top stories to get you up to speed, it's the Coin Bureau News. Jobs good, war bad. Employment figures in the United States are cause for celebration, but the situation in the Middle East is getting worse by the day. What does this all mean for the markets and for crypto? China feeling FOMO? As a former Chinese finance minister urges his country to closely examine developments in crypto, is the world's second largest economy changing its stance on digital assets? EIGEN is live. The long-anticipated EIGEN layer token launch has finally happened, and surprise, surprise, there's been no shortage of controversy around it. What's all the fuss about this time? The good, the bad, and the XRP. A week of contrasting fortunes for the veteran cryptocurrency sees Bitwise apply for a spot XRP ETF only for the SEC to appeal the recent court ruling. Is this crypto's version of the never-ending story? Satoshi Unmasked? A new HBO documentary is set to air this week, and some are expecting it to reveal the identity of Bitcoin's creator. Who's in the frame, and is this the ultimate crypto black swan? And a look at last week's top performing cryptos, the tweets of the week, dates for the diary, a couple of important announcements, your feedback, and much more besides. This is the Coin Bureau News, live. Hello, everyone. Another week in crypto is indeed underway, and we are back with the Coin Bureau News live. My name is Guy, and I am joined as ever by Nick.
What's up, guys? How you doing, man?
How are you, Nick?
Good. How was your first week of October?
October, yeah. It's staggering how quickly they've renamed it.
Yeah, exactly. Only a few days in, but to be fair, September was not really a rectember, so
no. The script has been well and truly flipped.
Yeah, just in like the halving year itself.
Yeah. The ETFs have just screwed everything, including October.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rectember. So we don't know where we are anymore. Good to see you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about today, as you will have seen. But let's kick off with some of the macro news that's been affecting the markets over the last week or so. It's a real mixed picture. There's good news and bad news out there in the markets. So let's start with the good news, shall we?
Good news. So last week we had some employment data out. We had the non-farm payrolls and employment and it was an upside surprise. 254,000 versus 150,000 predicted. So that blew past all expectations. Unemployment rate was coming down to 4.1%. So basically, this potentially is the soft landing that Jerome was looking for. So they were having a big party over at the Fed. Models and bottles. And by that, I mean economic models, not...
I think we know what you meant, Nick. That's extraordinary. So unemployment is almost at 4%.
Yeah.
Inflation is only a little bit above 2%. I mean, they are close. They're close to that mandate.
They're close to that mandate, and it means that so the worries were always about employment. If you look past the past 2 years, would these high rates lead to a massive unemployment, a recession? And it seems that that's far away right now. And you'll see also in terms of how the interest rate futures have reacted. We can look at the CME Fed Watch tool, our handy tool over there. And you can see that last week we were expecting a 53% chance of a 50 basis point cut. And since the the numbers came out, it's gone to 0%. So it looks like it all is set for a 25 basis point cut, at least according to the futures market when we get to the November meeting, which probably means another 25 in December, and that goes according to the Fed dot plot, which said another 50 basis points for the rest of the year.
Okay.
So markets like the reduced uncertainty around this, of course, and it should be positive for risk assets. Ironically, though, what's interesting is that although lower rates are coming down because the Fed is dropping the Fed funds rate, because there's these strong job numbers, right? The medium to long term rates, so 5 to 10 years, have gone up. So if we've got another chart there that I pulled up on TradingView, so this is the 5-year T-bill, and you'll see that there was the Fed pivot. I annotated that, and it's rallied since, right?
Yeah.
So that's because obviously they're expecting potentially in the next few years the Fed will have to increase interest rates again because the strong growth component will lead to potentially more inflation.
Right.
So that's why. And now we've got this sad irony where the average maturity in debt in the US is about 6 years, right? Which basically means that, ironically, people and mortgages are usually tied to the 30-year rate, and most of the debt maturity is 6 years, which means that people who've got variable rate debts, credit card debts, things like that, interest rates could potentially be going up. So cost of living can still be difficult, even though the Fed is dropping the short-term rates and the T-bills.
So they could kind of fall into that trough between rates just starting to decline and then rates going back up again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And one of the charts, so what this means for crypto assets like Bitcoin, what it should have meant last week, we'll get onto the next story in a bit, but the 30-day rolling correlation between BTC and the Nasdaq and S&P is near yearly highs again, right?
Okay.
And that's why all these factors that should impact on risk assets, like potentially improved macro conditions on the jobs market and lower inflation, are going to mean that Bitcoin is going to move pretty much like risk assets, like stocks.
Right.
But that also means if there is any FUD on the macro perspective, it's going to also lead to potentially a fall in Bitcoin. Was exactly what happened last week on Friday.
There's plenty of FUD around.
When, of course, now concerns around war in the Middle East. Unfortunately, this seems to get intensifying, right? Because Iran launched that missile attack at Israel, and now the big question is, what will the response be?
There's quite a lot of speculation over what form that will take, and obviously there are a lot of diplomatic efforts to try and get one side or other to climb down, but it does look like Israel's going to respond in some way or another, and depending on how serious that is, that might involve another Iranian response, and I guess the risk is that conflict just widens and widens, swallows up more of the region, gets more people involved, and obviously all the sort of resulting carnage.
It's not too far from us, just across the
over the way. Yeah.
And also potentially like one of the prime targets probably looks like it's going to be, because Biden okayed it, was oil infrastructure.
Okay.
Right? And oil has rallied as a result of this.
Yeah.
And also there's obviously a massive concern that Iran could block the Straits of Hormuz, which is about 20 to 30% of global oil flows through there. Okay. So if that is the case, then that could have a massive disruption to oil markets. If oil rallies, it leads to oil shock, supply side shock, inflation could start picking up again, all these concerns. And of course, Bitcoin being now more increasingly a risk asset, or viewed as a risk asset, could react negatively to initial geopolitical risk.
Yeah. And it certainly tumbled last week when Iran sent those missiles over, didn't it? I mean, you could see it on the chart.
Yeah.
It's obviously these concerns around the Middle East are having a big effect on not just the crypto market, but crypto is very sensitive to some of these macro shocks. Just going back to the jobs data, I mean, it's a bit of a change, isn't it? That actually good jobs data is good news, because for so long, strong jobs data has been sort of bad for the crypto market because it's kind of pushed rate cuts back.
Yeah.
But as you say, you think we're still probably going to get 50 bips by year's end, but just not all in one go.
Not all in
November.
one go. So it's more certainty rather than, we're getting a surprise, rate cut. So the market's like some degree of certainty. And this question that's always been out there around growth is, and also inflation is trending lower as well, right? We'll get to that. Like PCE 2 weeks ago came in below expectations. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the macro outlook. As I said, good news and bad news. And let's just hope and pray that the bad news doesn't get any worse, because it is a pretty grim situation out there. Let's have a look at another macro factor now. Now, this is a bit more tied in directly to crypto. This is China.
Yeah. So last week we talked about China and the decrease in the monetary stimulus they're going through, all the decreased rates that they're going through to try and pump the economy. And we thought how that could be obviously good for crypto, because people are going to want to invest in assets that are not tied to the property market, and they can offshore their wealth, and this liquidity could potentially, this global liquidity play could flow into crypto.
Yeah.
And last week we got some news that a former finance minister was urging the Chinese government to do studies on crypto. And this was in relation to obviously the Bitcoin ETFs in the US, and because the US is embracing it, that China doesn't want to fall behind. And it's interesting because I think that blockchain technology is one of the few things that, that China can, because it's open and permissionless, they can something they can work on to compete with the US, as opposed to other things like chip manufacturing, for instance, where they've been embargoed, and other places where the US wants to try and place sanctions on them in terms of high tech. This is something that China sees as an opportunity from open permissionless tech to build their own stuff and challenge it. And there is a way for Chinese investors to invest in ETFs, crypto ETFs through Hong Kong, but it's not as efficient as other ways. But
yeah. And of course, as we discussed last week, crypto is still very big in China.
Yeah.
You know, China is Binance's biggest market.
Yeah.
China also accounts for over 50% of Bitcoin's hash rate, or controls more than 50% of Bitcoin's hash rate, which we'll talk about in a minute. I still think that's absolutely crazy, given that, you know, although China didn't ban crypto, they were much more serious about cracking down on crypto mining, or at least that they supposedly were. But it hasn't stopped, and there's still tons of Bitcoin mining happening on the Chinese mainland.
Yeah, and in terms of buying, obviously we know, you mentioned the fact that Binance, a lot of the accounts are still coming from, you know, Chinese users apparently. Yeah. Also, apparently FTX had a lot of Chinese presence in terms of the accounts that are there, that are registered for FTX. But there was another story that came up last week from Bloomberg, and this was about, and we talked about this before, the massive bustling OTC trade going on in China.
Okay.
So while people can't necessarily get access via exchanges, fiat rails, they can buy Tether or crypto OTC, in this case Tether, and 75.4 billion in inflows in the first 3 quarters of 2024, which has basically meant 74.5 in the first quarter. And then obviously this allows Chinese investors discrete ways to trade yuan for crypto using other public exchanges if they're using VPNs, etc. And an interesting stat as well is more than half of these in value, in terms of value of these trades, exceeded $1 million.
Wow. Okay.
So this means that there's obviously large volume going through here, mainly probably Chinese investors trying to offshore their wealth, get money out, kind of like avoid the capital controls, because there's a very tight capital controls in China for many reasons. But there's also the one other thing which I found interesting from this article is that it's also using for commodities trades. A lot of people are using crypto for commodities trades, in the sense Russian commodities firms and Chinese clients have used digital assets to settle some cross-border transactions.
Yeah, of course, because Russia now being locked out of SWIFT, but China. I've read that trade between China and Russia has really picked up in the last couple of years or so. And if they can't use SWIFT, they've got an easy and very fast alternative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So China is, even though China seems to have taken a bit of a backseat in terms of crypto, certainly from what the CCP wants, it is still a big force in the market. And I think it seems to me to be a bit of a sleeping giant in a way.
Don't fade China. Don't fade China. What I would fade, though, is EIGEN. Smooth move.
Very smooth.
Yeah. So, wow. Where do we start?
Yeah, EIGEN. So this was EigenLayer. So one of the most hyped projects of the year, if not the most hyped project of the year. Its token has finally gone live. EIGEN went live just last week. And is now sort of tradable across various exchanges. It had a pretty high FDV, fully diluted valuation, just $6.5 billion.
Yeah, it's down to 5.7 now.
Okay, so heading in one direction only. Now, there's a lot to talk about here because, as I said, this was a hugely hyped project. A lot of people were very excited about this. The kind of hype before, I mean, I remember we were talking about SAFTs, weren't we, a few months ago?
I remember, I've heard through the grapevine that earlier this year, SAFT, or the valuation on some of these SAFTs are trading at like 400 times seed or something. Like people were going crazy for these in the OTC markets. It was so much excitement. They raised, I think, about 2 months ago, a massive valuation, a large amount of money from VCs. Then all suddenly changed when they decided their airdrop campaign came live.
Yeah, let's just rewind to that, to the EigenLayer airdrop campaign. This was kind of a how not to do an airdrop.
Yeah, so there were numerous factors. I mean, it's a long list around the grievances people had with this airdrop, but I think that one of them was that geo-blocked to nearly 70% of the world.
Yeah,
and were not disclosed before, and that it was going to be geo-blocked. So, basically creating the expectation, take people, submit, contributing to the TVL, right, and help increase its valuation potentially in the private market. And then apparently you blocked because of this, also blocked from VPNs.
So they were able to stake. They were able to, you know,
can stake. Yeah, sure. Come, we'll take your money. Please stake in our contract. But wait a second. Where you from? Oh, please. You know.
Yeah.
So that was what people had an issue with. Also, the fact that it couldn't be transferred for some time, right?
Yep.
So people are like, I staked. We're going to get to the airdrop, and now I can't, move it to transfer it to do anything with it. And yeah, that's just created so much FUD around it. I think it was like, obviously, many people know that you don't have a right necessarily to a token, but when you create the expectation, you have to manage expectations. So this is one of those examples of, and they're not, EIGEN is not the, there's been many others that have been through similar, the rung of fire in terms of like their airdrop campaign. But so that was the airdrop campaign. And now they've launched, obviously, but since that, there's been, even just this last week after hitting them, and also the news about potentially like the team giving some token addresses, send us, send us, if you want to send us some tokens for airdrops, here's our wallet address in case you want to, like, nudge, like we want that. CoinDesk article repeat about from 2 months ago. But last week, there was this news of, what we saw with Celestia.
Yeah, so this is the business of locked tokens that went to investors, went to early investors, VCs in other words. They were staked, but the staking rewards, surprise, surprise, were able to be were saleable.
Yeah,
liquid.
Staking rewards are saleable, which means that obviously I akin this to basically like switcheroo, because it's like exit liquidity in another form. Because it doesn't matter if the tokens are locked and you stake it and you get in rewards. In the case of Polychain with Celestia, where you get 4x your return and you've sold out, you've basically exited your position, right?
Yeah.
So in some degree. That's basically, and initially people thought, okay, this was all tokens were locked, and this was only for those that were given the airdrop, but apparently it was those early investors as well. And there was a tweet that was about some investor also tweeted about this as well. And then they updated their documentation after the fact that this was allowed.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal. It's pretty crazy. And then also, if it couldn't be bad enough, last week there was the news, just the end of last week or over the weekend, there was news of tokens being sent to a wallet that immediately sold.
Right. Okay, so this wasn't even a vesting model.
So this is the thing. Yeah, exactly. So firstly, the point of wallets being sent to an investor that isn't in a vesting contract, which should be. Right.
Yeah.
You use a vesting contract. I mean, it's publicly available, easily, transparent, immutable vesting contracts. That wasn't there. And then it turned out that this wasn't actually, it was actually a phishing email, apparently, where the address had changed. So they basically sent tokens to a non-vesting address or some, and to an investor, and then it was promptly sold. So they secured 5 billion of TVL, but I mean, a phishing email.
I was going to say, a project with this sort of TVL and they get phished that easily. That is worrying.
Yeah, but I mean, So I mean, look, and we're doing a review on EigenLayer, which will be live next week sometime. There was a lot of big things happening. It was exciting things for it, and earlier this year. But the problem is, it kind of like does epitomize this high valuation, low circulation meta that many people have, taken massive issue with, especially in the whole debate now between meme coins and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to kind of stand for, in a way, the archetypal VC project.
Yeah,
as in, as you said, high FDV, low float. And there seems to be a backdoor for the VCs to, basically make money off the token before supposedly they were allowed to, by selling these staking rewards, as we saw with Celestia. And I think when you couple that, I mean, it's quite a complicated, EigenLayer is, I'm the first to admit, a very complex project.
You mean the intersubjective work token in a 42-page scientific paper is complicated?
Exactly. What was the quote you found? Intersubjective work token solving universality, isolation, metering, and compensation. God, about time someone did that.
I've been dying for that. I mean, that's we're solving the world's problems here. Since where's it been all this time?
Bloody universality! I tell you, I'm absolutely sick to the back teeth of it. So it really EigenLayer does seem to be, although it seems to have a lot of promise, and I don't think there's any reason why it can't go on to be a success. But I think the optics around this are really, really bad for your average run-of-the-mill crypto person who's who wants to be in the market, who wants to invest, but they look at this and they go, well, why would I? This game is rigged.
Unfortunately, that's the case. And the result is that they go and chase meme coins. And to be honest, I don't blame them, because I'd rather be PvP, me versus you, than me versus some VC who's got, all the cards in his favor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, where we don't, at least with meme coins, you kind of know what the rules are. If it's PvP, you know what the rules of the game are.
And you perfectly know, look, there's obviously always a small contingent who don't, but most people, I think, know that it's massively risky with meme coins. And you have the risk of being rugged. You have the risk of losing big time. And statistically, most will. But I'd rather take my chances on that respect if, then someone else who's basically got all the cards against me.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be, I think we want EigenLayer to do well going into the future to get past this. But I think as we look back, there are going to be a lot of lessons for projects of all sorts, really. Crypto projects of all descriptions looking to launch, looking to do an airdrop, looking to do a TGE, whatever it is. And I think this whole EigenLayer saga up to now is going to give them a really good blueprint in a lot of ways of what not to do.
Yeah.
And you're right, people aren't necessarily entitled to an airdrop. This is free money. And there was a really interesting debate around that, on that topic when the EigenLayer, it apparently wasn't an airdrop, it was a stake drop.
A stake drop.
Yeah.
So they reinvented that word as well.
They reinvented that word as well, just to make things a little bit more complicated. Yeah. But yeah, there was a fascinating debate around that time. And I don't think it's gone away. And I think the whole business of how you do airdrops, there is so much to be said for them. They are this sort of unique thing to crypto, but I think they're going to have to, change the way that they do them. And to be fair to EigenLayer and to other projects, they are walking a tricky line in terms of airdrops, aren't they? Because they have to try and keep regulators happy. Regulations aren't always very clear in a lot of jurisdictions. So, they have a very fine line to tread between keeping the community happy and keeping the regulators happy. And I don't envy them for having to do that.
Yeah.
But I think the airdrops in general probably need to be rethought, I think, going forward from this. Yep. And I think just the whole sort of VC meta and questions around transparency. What a bit. Tarun on the chopping block made a good point. He said, well, it was in the documentation. People don't always read the documentation, which is fair enough. But
they changed the docs right afterwards, right?
They did. Well,
just
apparently
before,
so,
apparently. So before the unstaking. So yeah. Moving on then, we had XRP was a very volatile week for the XRP fans last week. Yeah?
Gosh, it was a roller coaster.
It was a roller coaster for them, really real roller coaster. So at the beginning of the week, we had this relatively bullish news that Bitwise was looking to registered for a spot XRP ETF.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this would allow for institutional access. Obviously, an ETF is bullish because investors can buy through the shares. Obviously, it leads to institutional demand for it. And they did this because they thought that, look, now we've cleared the way in terms of the regulatory uncertainty with regards to XRP, because the SEC has, lost the lawsuit last year and the interlocutory appeal. And therefore, we think that XRP is not considered a security. So let's go and file for an XRP ETF. And, everyone was happy in the XRP community. Ripple is probably looking happy because, hey, we can file for an IPO now. Things looking good. It's behind us. The lawsuit is behind us. Well, guess what happens a few days later?
Yep. The SEC goes and appeals that decision, appeals against Judge Torres's ruling, which basically said that Ripple's sales of XRP on exchanges weren't securities offerings.
Programmatic
sales, sorry.
Exactly. Weren't security. So, and basically appealing that. And it's just weird because they lost the interlocutory appeal last year.
Yeah.
And now they're appealing this. And it's like, what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
Like, have you not taken enough L's before?
They just
want another, just take out those L's,
I guess I was talking about this on NFA Live with Rob and Ben last week, and I can't remember which of them made this point. So apologies, Rob or Ben, if you're watching, and it's not you, but one of them made a very good point. It's like, this is probably a question of precedence. The SEC has got so many ongoing lawsuits against crypto companies at the moment. The majority of them revolve around this business of unregistered, alleged unregistered securities offerings. And if there is a precedent set in win this case against Ripple, then that is going to make it very, very difficult for the SEC to get anywhere in those other cases.
Yeah, we have a video on this. I think it's about a month old. We talked exactly about this, the presidential value of this. So it's really bad. It's a tough one. I mean, and also what's interesting though is after that, right? But apparently it happened before, but it was disclosed after that. Grayball, right?
Grayball,
yeah. He basically was no longer, and he was the main man behind this enforcement. Like his signature was and everything. He was behind every enforcement action, and he apparently left. Now it's uncertain whether he was sacked or whether he resigned, but I think it's probably the former, because most of these lawsuits he was throwing at the crypto industry were losing, and also remember that one. Out where they had to actually close an office because
that was Deadbox
in Utah. Yeah, so maybe this was I don't know what's going on in the upper echelons, the SEC. Who knows? But
I can't imagine. I can't imagine it's the same mood as in the Fed at the moment.
No, definitely not.
I doubt they're getting the bottles and the and whatever else it was in and the models at the SEC. Yeah, it's that statement from the SEC sort of left it very open. I did a bit of digging around, and it's impossible to tell whether he was pushed or whether he jumped. I mean, either way would make sense because he must have been having a pretty rotten time given how badly the SEC's been doing. I mean, obviously the SEC's remit extends a long way beyond crypto, but if you just look at it in crypto terms, it has had an absolutely terrible year.
And he broke the sacred rule of employment: don't make your boss look bad.
Yeah.
And Gary was getting flamed in Congress and all this kind of stuff. And
yes, because I mean,
he was the public face, even though this guy was behind a lot of the enforcement action and the losses.
Yeah.
Gary was the one who's basically getting roasted left, right, and center.
You imagine the day after that, at 9 a.m., the day after that congressional hearing, the atmosphere inside SEC HQ must have been people walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
So the boss is not going to be happy today. Yeah. So this is a big change at the top. Near the top in the SEC. Gerber Graywell, the SEC's director of enforcement, as Nick said, basically the person responsible for bringing all these actions against crypto companies. Even though the cold dead hand of Gary is doubtless involved as well. He is now gone. It's not quite clear whether that was his choice or it was a choice made for him. But yeah, and this, as we were saying, this follows a pretty dreadful time of it for the SEC. And but they're not giving up against Ripple. So this case drags on. The crypto's never-ending story. Another chapter, another interminable chapter is
another
beginning.
Never-ending story. And speaking of never-ending crypto stories,
oh, that was beautiful, Nick. Beautiful
Satoshi.
Segue.
Let's talk about Satoshi. Can the real Satoshi please stand up? This was actually interesting. Last week, apparently, it was disclosed that an HBO documentary has uncovered a new Satoshi.
Okay.
Uncovered who Satoshi is. So to be fair, actually, this article from Politico, which first broke it, apparently they sensationalized it, and you were saying that it's basically.
So the documentary makers themselves and HBO, as far as I'm aware, didn't make any claims that they'd identified Satoshi. Yeah. But this Politico article then is published saying that it is going to identify Satoshi, and that obviously kicks off. I mean, crypto Twitter sort of went into meltdown as you would expect. And there's now a whole load of people speculating on this. Now, we'll get to the names in the frame in a moment. A couple of things. I don't know if any of you guys did you see the trailer for this?
I did. They interviewed Adam Back, and it was, and then also Samson Mao from Blockstream. So they were definitely interested in getting involved in this. So one hopes potentially that it doesn't cast Bitcoin in a negative light, because these guys, I would assume, wouldn't choose to be in a documentary that does. Yeah.
I just want to say as an aside, like this, the whole business of Satoshi has really sort of animated people in the comments. I mean, it's hard to keep up with the debate there, but
I'm surprised that's getting more comments than the elephant in the room, which is the blanket on my legs, which is making me incredibly hot right now. I'm trying not to mention it, but I'm dying of heat.
Nick has been told in no uncertain terms that if he's not going to wear trousers, if he's just going to wear shorts, then he's going to have to cover his legs up.
Yeah, I will not wear trousers. I will always wear shorts, so I will choose to opt for the slightly more painful.
Yeah. So Nick has got the blanket covering himself. That's what that's all about. But anyway, back to the issue at hand, Satoshi. So yeah, as Nick said, this documentary features, among others, Adam Back, who most of you will know as the CEO of Blockstream, and also one of the people who has long been sort of in the frame or speculated as being Satoshi. Not only because he knows a heck of a lot about Bitcoin and is, one of the OGs and cypherpunk, but also because he's British. And there is, the Bitcoin white paper features a lot of British spelling. The Genesis block features a headline from the Times of London.
Time zone wise was also posted at particular times in times, UK time, Europe mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the hope is, and I think this is a reasonable hope to have, as you said, that it features these people. The hope is that this isn't just some character assassination of Bitcoin, that it is a genuinely sort of thoughtful investigation, exploration of it.
We hope,
because you would have thought that they wouldn't have got the cooperation of such well-respected figures like Adam Back and Samson Moe in this documentary, but that said, we should keep an open mind. The documentary is being aired on Wednesday, so obviously, Wednesday is going to be an interesting day on crypto Twitter. So let's just speculate a little bit on who might be named. The first name that came, the most popular name, is not one that I was overly familiar with.
No, I think very few were. I personally wasn't. We've done Satoshi videos before, and we never mentioned him. Len Sassaman.
Yeah. So this guy, Len Sassaman, the late Len Sassaman, sadly, was an American cryptographer, and he was heavily involved in the cypherpunk movement. He worked closely with Hal Finney, who is also gone to the Great Coding Camp in the Sky.
Coding Camp in the Sky
it's well meant. And obviously Hal Finney was the recipient of the first ever Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi. So, I mean, we're talking about a couple of real OGs here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hearing myself back.
Who's that guy? Who else is in this live stream with us? Oh, shit.
Okay. No, it's just my echo. So Len Sassaman. He is in.
Also, we got the polymarket odds. I don't know if we can put up the polymarket odds here. This is pretty interesting to see. So if you guys can just pop that on the screen. So they obviously have Len Sassaman up there, and it seems like he's the favorite, which is interesting.
By a long way.
And there's others you mentioned, Adam Back, Nick Szabo. But I think what's really interesting here is that, although the second most traded in terms of volume is a chap called Paul LaRue.
Yes.
And that's really interesting because we have mentioned him potentially before as well. And if you guys don't know who Paul LaRue is, you don't want to know. He's a Zimbabwean South African international drug dealer and arms dealer who basically wanted to be Pablo Escobar-esque, Lord of War, kind of like, and cryptographer all at the same time, potentially. And he ran this massive drugs operation around the world from the Philippines, arms dealing in Africa, fake passports and everything. He was pinched by the DEA in 2012 and got sentenced to 25 years. But part of the reason why people think it could be him is obviously he was Zimbabwean, South African English. So
he uses correct English.
Correct English, the right English, right?
Yep. Glad some people still do.
Very big cryptographer in the cryptography industry, and he developed some algorithms beforehand for encryption.
Okay.
Obviously cared about anonymity and stuff like that.
So he had the knowledge, and I guess you could argue he had the motivation because he was running this. I mean, he's basically an international supervillain. You can't say that about many people.
Yeah, exactly.
But Paul LaRue, I think, international supervillain would be on his.
He was also a bad guy. Did obviously try as any drug dealer would be.
Yeah.
So anyways, but he's one of the, hopefully, it's not him. I think that I would hope it's not him. I'd rather probably, it's either that or the NSA, which is probably the worst outcome.
Yeah. Well, this is another one that someone was speculating on this in the comments. Actually, there's long been I've heard it referred to as the sort of lab leak theory as well, that Bitcoin was developed by the CIA or the NSA, a US government agency, and sort of got out because someone sort of released it into the wild. There was a good Dre 5110. Satoshi is probably GCHQ in the UK, along with another American government department. That would certainly explain the British English.
Yeah.
Although
exactly.
I would imagine that if it was GCHQ and like the NSA working together, the Americans would probably get the final call on.
Well, guys, what is the spelling? Please, can we spell center with an ER? What is this, guys? You got spell check.
Why do you
run
keep
spell check?
spelling things wrong? God damn it. So this is the Martin Shkreli, of all people, is behind the Paul LaRue theory. Martin Shkreli wrote on his blog a case for Paul LaRue, it's going to be interesting to see. But Len Sassaman does seem to be the person that most people are betting on. This will also be interesting to see whether Polymarket was right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so this is going to sort of keep everyone gripped. I must say that the mainstream media doesn't have a great track record when it comes to unmasking Satoshi. Back in, I think it was 2014, a Newsweek reporter claimed to have tracked down...
They doxed the poor guy who just had the same last name, a poor Dorian.
Poor Dorian Nakamoto, yeah.
Basically, just sitting there.
Yeah, this guy, was just sort of totally overwhelmed, and it sounds like really had his life turned upside down for quite a long time as a result.
His face became synonymous, in a way, with Satoshi to some degree, right? He just became synonymous with Bitcoin. Even though he wasn't Satoshi, he called it Bitcom.
Yeah,
it's like so it's interesting. Poor guy.
Yeah. So all I would say to the makers of this documentary, if you are in fact about to claim that you've unmasked the real Satoshi, then all I can say is you better be right, because it has consequences if it's the wrong person. But I guess the ideal outcome is that they don't, because Satoshi should remain anonymous. That is part of the founding myth of Bitcoin.
We are all Satoshi.
We're all Satoshi. So he's going to have to unmask all of us.
Yeah.
And I think, what I hope is that first thing, I hope this documentary doesn't actually unmask him.
Yeah.
If it does, then I've got to say, I hope it's either Hal Finney or Paul Sassaman, Len Sassaman, sorry, because then because they're no longer with us, they can't be, they can't be molested. They can't be, attacked by government agencies. They can't have their lives ruined.
Yeah.
But what I really hope is that this is a sort of fair and proportional look at Bitcoin, because what I say to a lot of people is that if you're interested in crypto, the story of Bitcoin is the best place to start, because not only does it help you understand what Bitcoin is, why it's so important, how it works, etc., but it's also just an incredible story.
Yeah, 100%. And I think most crypto, users have an aversion to reading white papers, but the Bitcoin white paper is relatively simplistic. It's definitely not as long and complicated as the intersubjective work token from EIGEN.
Yes.
It's simplistic, and it helps you understand exactly why Bitcoin is such a revolutionary technology, from the blockchain, how it functions and all that. And I think that's our first hit into crypto, and people should just take the time to read it. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Bitcoin white paper is definitely worth a read. Okay, so those are all the news stories that we were going to look at today. Let's move on and look at there was a great tweet here from Pierre. I think this sums it up beautifully.
Yeah.
An entire industry filled with turbo nerds couldn't figure out who Satoshi is for the past 15 years. But yes, I do believe some journalists cracked the mystery.
This is so true. The most hardcore cypherpunks and sleuths in the world, from Chainalysis to Arkham to all the online Twitter sleuths. But this journalist, I'm sure he's got some great tools on him. There are some amazing journalists, some very talented journalists out there. So let's not rule it out. But a lot of people have been looking for Satoshi for many years. Plus, of course, I'm sure there are quite a few government agencies that would like to have a quiet word with him. Yeah,
probably the IRS. I must say I'm kind of skeptical, but let's keep an open mind until Wednesday. All right, let's move on then. Let's first have a look at last week's top gainers, the top performing cryptos. I'll remind you that we look at cryptos in the top 100 over a 7-day time frame, and look at the biggest gainers of the last week or so. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so if PopCat, no obvious catalyst, I think, although there has been mentioned a lot by especially some of the meme coin traders, Mahmoud Mamadov, the guy who he basically Murad Mamadov, sorry. Murad. He basically made a big speech at Token 2049 talking about this meme coin super cycle, and he's been bullish on PopCat, and PopCat's just been rallying like crazy. It's also suggesting we also have a trading channel launching soon, which we'll come back to in a bit in terms of an announcement. But our host there as well suggests that it could be a lot of volume coming from Orca, which is suggesting that some whales are moving the price and trying to potentially suck in retail.
Yeah. So that's PopCat. And yes, Coin Bureau trading is back live, but we will talk about that in a minute. Next up is, this was last week as well, FTT.
I don't understand it, man. What's going on here?
People basically, so this is FTX's exchange token for anyone who's been living in a cave for the last few years. Well, this is people betting on when these FTX payouts are going to start.
I don't understand why. I mean, FTT was a proprietary token of FTX exchange. I think it's just it's like a meme coin. I think that's what it is. It's just trading based on the hype of it, right?
Yeah. Okay, what about...
and then Mantra. So no obvious catalyst here, but Mantra seems to be having the on-chain moment for RWAs. And I think you'll also be on a panel in 2 weeks.
That's right.
With the CEO of Mantra.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting.
Maybe he'll have some Mantra socks. Nick had one job from Token 2049.
I searched for it. I couldn't find it. I'm sorry. I had a lot of other things to do. I know it was on the top of the agenda, but I searched around. There was like 500 stands. I put my laser eyes on trying to locate this, pink socks. But
excuses.
Okay.
So that is Mantra. Yeah, as Nick said, no obvious catalyst, but RWAs are having a moment, and Mantra seems to be the chain of choice there. Next up, to no one's surprise, is once again Sui. This is, I think, not its fourth consecutive week, but
the Sui September is going into the
Suitober.
Suitober, yeah.
Suitober is back on. Full disclosure, I hold Sui. It's one of my larger holdings.
Me too.
So just so you know. Now, I've got an interesting theory on why Sui is pumping, and I think it is thanks to Charles Hoskinson.
Yeah.
Because Charles tweeted last week, reading about Sui, it's good to see George's work come to life. They deserve great success in the space.
Credit to him. I like that. I like more creators should be complimenting other people in the space. We don't have to be against each other all the time.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's great to see support for other chains from the likes of Charles. George, incidentally, I think he's referring to George Danazis, who is co-founder of Sui. This guy is, talk about a gigabrain. This is a professor at UCL. He's the chief scientist at Miston Labs, which is Sui's.
Was he the one that actually was part of the team that developed Move in Facebook?
I think he may be, yeah.
Or was it the CTO? I don't know, but I know one of them, I think probably the CTO, but one of those was actually the developer behind the actual code Move.
Yeah,
the code language Move.
There's a seriously clever team there. He's a security and privacy expert. So, so that's the George that Charles is mentioning. Actually, as we're on the topic of Charles, I've got some good news for all Charles fans and Cardano fans out there. He is likely to be with us for quite some time. Because someone retweeted earlier this week Charles at a longevity clinic in Switzerland.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So it looks like some of Charles's billions are going towards extending human life. So you would imagine
he's also going to be investing in that as well, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, crypto billionaires want to live forever for obvious reasons. I mean, come on.
Charles is younger than me. That's great. I know he doesn't necessarily look it, but yeah. So get ready for Charles Hoskinson to be around for quite some time yet.
Cool.
Thank goodness. And last but not least of last week's top gainers is
Mog. It's Mogtober, guy. That's the only reason. Mogtober.
It's Mogtober. Okay. I had a look at Mog's socials. I was trying to find a catalyst for why Mog had pumped. Mog's Twitter feed is quite something to behold. Those guys, they know the power of a meme.
They do. I think we should get those glasses, man.
They
I think we should
cool
get those glasses. Pretty cool glasses. Maybe if they send some, the team there send some.
So Mogtober. Okay, so those are last week's top gainers. Now we have an announcement. We alluded to it earlier, Nick.
Yeah. So basically, as you guys may or may not know, we have a trading channel, which was a Coin Bureau trading channel, which launched about 2 years ago, and then it took a breather when our previous host decided to move on, and it's resurfaced again with another Dan who looks a little bit different.
Okay.
But Dan, our Coin Bureau's head of research, a Gigabrain, he is going to be doing a four weekly videos on what coins are pumping during the day, numerous different coins, and looking at the technical analysis behind it, which is something that we don't obviously get too deep into because you're mostly focused on fundamentals. So he'll be doing that 4 times a week, and he's also being joined by 2 other well-known crypto YouTubers and traders, Aaron from Moon, aka Moonin Papa, that's his nickname, and Mariano from the Trading Parrot, and they also going to be streaming once a week as well. So you'll have a diversity of opinion on the Coin Bureau trading channel across, and shorter term stuff, obviously, what's going on the markets on the day. So it gives you diversity of content. So if you guys are not subscribed already, be sure to do it. And we've already got his first video out, and it's interesting. It talks about PopCat, Nero. What else?
Yes, there's one other as well.
Baby Doge.
Baby Doge,
There we
yeah.
go.
So I'm sure you guys are all dying to know about those. But yeah, Dan's analysis of chart. I mean,
he joined. He's like, okay, I'm going to be doing some analysis, hardcore analysis on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and it's like, no, bro, you're going to be doing it on Baby Doge, Nero,
and PopCat. I've got to say, like, our Coin Bureau Club subscribers will know Dan well. He is our head of research. You might have seen him on the channel on More Coin Bureau before. He occasionally pops up in some of our videos. I would go as far as to say there isn't a human being alive who knows more about crypto than Dan. Or if there is, there's not very many of them. And he really understands fundamentals better than anyone, but he's really got into the whole sort of charting aspect of it. And check out that first video of his. He speaks very, very quickly. You need
to, some people usually say our videos, we have to 1.25x. Here you have to go 0.75 or maybe a 0.5 if you're non-native English.
Yeah.
But that's good because traders, you need your information quickly, right? So, that's it.
Yeah. So do check that out. So that is Coin Bureau Trading brand new hosts, I should say. So look out for lots more content from there. All the charts a person could wish for. Okay.
Cool. Dates for the diary, right?
Dates for the diary,
Thursday's a very big day because that's when 2 of the most important macro data points land for this month, and that's
lovely.
Initial. So it's on the dual mandate of the Fed, the 2 legs of the dual mandate. Yeah, so we've got the initial jobless claims coming out on Thursday morning. So that's the previous was 225,000, and the median forecast is 230K. So keep an eye on that, and basically if it's above or below the forecast, it will help determine what how the labor market is looking. And then of course, just after that we have the US CPI numbers. So the previous was 2.5%. The median expectation for this month is 2.3%, or previous month is 2.3%. And I think it could potentially also surprise us because remember the PCE numbers came out 2 weeks ago, and that was a surprise to the downside. So already the market is expecting trending lower. Maybe it could surprise to the downside there as well, which would, of course, be further proof that the Fed has managed to do that, manage that soft landing. That soft landing.
So Thursday's a big day at the Fed.
Yeah.
So do you think Jerome Powell and maybe some of his buddies are on like a performance-related bonus? Do you think Jerome will get like a customized Hummer? A Humvee if he
I would hope that he'd get him something of more value than a Humvee when you steer in $1 trillion economy that hasn't crashed. I mean, I would expect at least a Bugatti and maybe a private jet for a performance-related thing, Good job, Jerome. You haven't crashed the US economy. Here you go. A Humvee.
Well, I don't know. I can see Jerome Powell just burning around Washington D.C. or New York in a customized Hummer, windows down, hip hop thumping at full volume.
Models and bottles, bro.
Models and bottles. I think that's just the way Jerome rolls. But well, good luck to them if they manage to keep that.
Bad girl yelling, hanging outside the back. Bad girl yelling, hanging outside outside the back. Yo,
popping bottles out the window. Yeah. Well, keep a lookout for that. Yeah. Okay, so that's the dates for your diary. Basically, Thursday's the big day of next week from a data perspective. Let's go now to tweets of the week. let's start off. This is a tweet from DeFi Dad. If you don't follow DeFi Dad, he is one of the best crypto creators out there, obviously focused on DeFi, as the name
also
suggests.
an investor. He runs a VC fund as well.
He does, yeah. And a really good guy, a really nice chap, and has excellent analysis. And he tweeted this: I've had 4 quality calls today with founders, very bullish. Great teams building big ideas with immediate product market fit. We are back.
So true, yeah. And this is the kind of thing you also see in IRL when you go to these events and you speak to people building. Although there's this, reaction to projects, altcoins. Everyone's focused on meme coins. If you go and meet the builders, you see there's lots of people in the trenches working hard, building exciting things. So don't let it be distracted on Twitter. Go and speak to people IRL, get on the calls, and you'll see what's being built. Yeah.
And I don't think DeFi Dad is the sort of person to just sort of blow hopium into the market. So if he's bullish, I think that's a damn good sign. Okay. Next up is from Senator Pat Toomey, retired US Senator. 1 in 8 crypto owners live in a battleground state, including 1.4 million crypto owners here in Pennsylvania. When you have a presidential race that will be decided by razor-thin margins, this is a voting bloc that's set to tip the scales.
Yeah, it's true. And we talked about this last week in the sense that who's the president doesn't really matter too much when it comes to policy. Mm-hmm. What matters is who's in the House and the Senate, your congressmen, right? Because that's where the margins are. That's where bills get passed. And they're the ones who, you should be focused on voting on. So even if you don't really want to support either Kamala or Trump, your Senate races and your House races are important because that determines how policy is made. So still vote down the ticket.
Okay. There we are. So that is a tweet from Pat Toomey. Your vote counts, in other words. So use it well. Okay, next tweet of the... This is from @GucciPrayers. Finally, we know what Tao is for.
Yeah, Tao.
Tao is like Popcat for guys who say, let's hop on a call.
Yeah, it reminds me of that meme, the Ben Affleck meme when he's standing in his head and like the cigarette is like, and then when someone says to you, let's hop on a call.
I'd like to add you to my personal profile on LinkedIn.
It's easier to explain. Let's hop on a call. Like, dude. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Crypto Twitter can be a frustrating place, but every so often they just nail it. So well done, Gucci Prayers, on that one. Next tweet of the week is from Leviathan, another absolute gem. So yeah, CZ didn't get the message, didn't get the memo.
He was supposed to come out and backsplit everything.
Yeah.
And
what happened, CZ? Obviously went home, went and spent time with his family when he should have been pumping all our bags.
Even BNB, come on. Even BNB's not up. Come on,
CZ.
Yeah.
Back to jail for you until you're prepared to come out and pump the market again. I enjoyed that one. Do we have one more? Oh, yes, from Arkham Intelligence as well. Now, this, I'm always fascinated by this. Ancient Bitcoin whale moved $3.5 million worth of BTC to exchanges. Now, as they go on to point out, this Bitcoin was mined 1 month after Bitcoin's launch in March 2009.
Can you imagine the balls you must have to hold Bitcoin like that for 15 years, man?
Yeah.
It's just madness.
That is crazy.
But what's interesting is that it was sent to Kraken. So Kraken knows who this guy is because you have to complete KYC. So it's interesting. So it's probably not anyone. Yeah, so it's really interesting.
Jesse Powell. It could be Jesse Powell.
Be Jesse Powell.
It could be Jesse Powell. I mean, Jesse Powell is one of the oldest of Gs.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, this is fascinating. It's so soon after because Bitcoin when it was released, it was a great big meh. People, no one really picked it up apart from Hal Finney and a few others. It was really slow. So to have mined it in the first few months, I mean, this is, I would love to know who that is. But good on them for. Do you think this is related to the documentary? Is this like Nick Sabo or someone go, oh God,
I'm about to be doxxed. Let me just sell this shit immediately. I'm going to be doxxed anyway, so I don't care if Kraken doxes me. Just KYC the shit. Let me send it out, buy, and give me our yacht and get the hell out of here.
Just unloading it to try and buy a boat in cash as soon as possible. Okay. All right. So yes, that's tweet of the week from Arkham Intel. Okay, we have another announcement as
Another
well.
important announcement.
Gosh.
Yes, this is an important giveaway going on. How would you guys like the opportunity to come to Dubai, all expenses paid trip for a few days, stay in a 5-star hotel, and come to the Cosmoverse conference, which is this is the biggest Cosmoverse conference yet. So there's now people mistake Cosmoverse to it's a Cosmos-based conference. Not at all. There's going to be multiple tracks. It's going to be a Bitcoin staking track. There's going to be a Solana track. They're focusing on numerous different ecosystems. The biggest one, many people are coming here already. There's a top tier line of speakers going to be there, including yours truly, us too.
Yes.
And obviously you'll also be able to meet us right in person. So that'll be cool, and always great to see the fans. So in order to participate, it's pretty straightforward. All you need to do is be a Coin Bureau Club member. So if you're not, you can subscribe down below. And you also need to tweet about why you want to come to Cosmoverse and what you like about the Coin Bureau Club, and then just change your name to Cosmoverse 21st of October 23rd. And then we will be selecting a winner in about a week. And as I said, all expenses paid, trip to Dubai, flights, and 5-star accommodation.
What's not to love? And that Cosmoverse conference, as Nick said, I think that should be fantastic. The lineup is excellent. These Cosmoverse conferences are always so well organized. CryptoCito, friend of the channel,
he's
is involved with organizing
driving force
it.
behind that. Yeah, exactly. And they're really interesting speakers as well. And like I say, it's not just a Cosmos conference. It's going to be numerous different topics discussed, from RWAs to Bitcoin staking to Solana, all these things. So
So check it out, and do feel free to enter if you would like to join us. Okay, that I think is about it for this week. So we will be back. We will be back same time next week. We've got
no comments.
Oh yes, of course. We were going to look at people's comments.
The comments. People in the comments have been dying for you to
I
select the comments. You're about to skip them.
I'm sorry.
Come on,
I'm just getting old. I'm just getting old and crap. Okay, let's have a look at some of your feedback before we wind up. Then Terry Lofton, free the short.
Terry, you're speaking my language, man. It's been long. I'm freeing them. The legs. Oh, it feels so good right now.
I thought he was talking about.
My legs can breathe.
I thought he was talking about shorts as in short trades at the start. I was like, what do you want a short?
Well, I use that as an entry point for me to finally free the shorts.
Okay. Yes, we've mentioned Nickelback, Nick. So there were a couple of others I wanted to address as well. Yes, there's a lot of debate, as I said in the comments, about Satoshi's identity. Someone suggested there was Britain. The British can't come up with something like BTC. I enjoyed that, and they followed it up with, they can't even run trains properly.
That is so true.
It's funny because it's true. Yeah, I get the impression that you're probably British, because only a Brit could be that downbeat about
no, it's
Britain.
pretty well known. The Brits can't run the country with even a little bit of change in degree temperature. It shuts down.
Leaves on the line. Yeah, that was the wrong kind of snow. That was actually a thing once.
The wrong kind of snow.
Trains actually once stopped running in the UK because of the wrong kind of snow. I'm not even making it up. Dre 5110 again makes the good point. I think this is the thing I mentioned earlier. To be honest, it's probably better and safer if we don't know who Satoshi is or was. Absolutely true. But I'm still going to be glued to that. What comes out of that documentary? Okay, I've seen other people speculating that Elon Musk could be Satoshi as well. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I mean, there was some speculation, at least a few years ago, potentially, but no, I don't think so. No.
I mean, he just wouldn't have had the time.
No, he wouldn't.
For anything else. I don't know how he has the time to do everything that he does at the moment. Okay. So someone was, I was wondering about, Nick, apparently Mog coin is related to Trump in some way. Mog pumps when something bullish happens with Trump. I suppose Trump had that rally at that place in Pennsylvania where they tried to off him. And you remember they tried to assassinate him in Pennsylvania. He had another rally there. This was the one where Elon Musk turned up and sort of started jumping around rather awkwardly and said he was dark MAGA.
So why does that have to do with Mog?
Well, because apparently Mog and Trump are related in some way.
I would love to know. Can you give the explanation? Yeah, I don't know how that's possible, but it'd be interesting to know.
Apparently it is. April Duggar says, at least explain the blanket and where your other hand is.
Oh man, well, I mean, I'm relaxing, guys. It's like, this is nice and comfortable. What can I do?
Exactly.
I love crypto.
Great. Okay, I think that's about it for this week. Thank you for all your feedback. Thank you for watching, folks. Thank you for giving Nick plenty of crap as usual. Always enjoy it. So yeah, we will be back next week. We've got a lot of content coming up. You've just filmed something about meme coins.
Meme coins and say review and what else? You did something on Silvergate, right?
Silvergate, yeah, just been doing something on Silvergate. That's an interesting story following up on Nick Carter's work. And obviously that EIGEN review is in the works as well. Keep a lookout for that.
And I spoke with the Aptos CEO, Mo, the other week as well. So yeah, it was cool.
Good alpha in there?
Yeah, some good, interesting stuff going off in the Aptos ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just lastly, Cardano Green says Satoshi is cousin Barry. Worst kept secret in crypto. Yeah, my cousin Barry. He'll
That
tell
would
you
be
he's
worse than
Satoshi.
Paul LaRue, the NSA combined, man.
Yeah.
That would just be sent to zero.
If cousin Barry is Satoshi, NGMI, it's all over.
NGMI.
Anyway, great to see you guys. Thank you for watching. We'll be back again soon. See you then.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
These two are good together, good team. Great guys, good work, great discussion as always. How are you doing? Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't cut it as a poor man. Stealing, tired of living like a blind man. I'm sick inside without a sense of feeling. And this is how you remind me. Love this one. It's always so much fun with you guys, really informative. Thanks, guys. Excellent stuff. Another great show from the Crypto Bros. Bro. Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't cut it as a poor man. Stealing, tired of living like a blind man. I'm sick inside without a sense of feeling. And this is how you remind me.